This is me, Angela. Friends and clients call me the Dream Builder. I'm a writer and social media professor who loves coffee. Because without it, I could not survive my life with my two boys, one girl,
and their dad is a real rocket scientist.
My family and friends, we laugh with each other and sometimes at each other. This is Today with Angela. We're talking about magazines, and not reading magazines, but creating your own magazine. So for those of you that don't know, of course, my name is Angela Marie Hutchinson, but I am also the editor and chief and founder of Hollywood and Vine magazine, which is a magazine that I started. This is our first issue, a magazine that I started in 2011. It's a full color 44-page magazine, full spread, and it's gorgeous, if I must say. Everything was like original in terms of like a lot of the graphic work that we did. And so I'm going to talk to you on how you can do your own magazine. So one of the first things I did was focusing on a name. You want to come up with a name that really has some meaning. So Hollywood and Vine, for those of you who don't know, Hollywood and Vine is the mecca of Hollywood. That intersection here in Los Angeles, California has so much meaning to our entertainment business. It's like where everything was like, started in terms of like where the studios were physically located. And then that, where you guys most know, if you're not here in Los Angeles, is the Hollywood Walk of Fame. That is the intersection in which they started. And what most people don't know is that the four corners at the Hollywood and Vine intersection are actually given to astronauts who went up into space, right? Neil Armstrong, right, who went to space. And so the astronauts that went up there, John Glenn, and they have a very special like engraved like moon type star at the four corners, because that was the most viewers of a televised show. So that newscast, when they went up, had the most viewers ever in the history of television. So that's why they earned that star for doing that as it pertains to the television. But anyway, so I'm going to talk to you through how you can do your own magazine. It's important to think about advertising if you want to sustain the magazine. If you're doing it as a portfolio piece, you have an opportunity to be a little bit more creative, focusing on the stories and content you want to have. You don't have to worry so much about who's on the cover. For our magazine, we pretty much did unknown or rising stars, but we did have some celebrities here and there. We did like Ryder Strong from oh gosh, I'm blanking on the name of the show, but we also did like Tangi Miller, and we had Meta World Peace. Although he's famous, we had him because it was his first time doing acting. He was in Steve Harvey's movie Think Like a Lady, Act Like a Man, based on Steve Harvey's book. And so he talked about his experience as an actor. So we try to cover topics like that are different that you wouldn't otherwise. So he wouldn't necessarily be on the cover of Entertainment Magazine for acting. He might be on the cover for, he played with the Los Angeles Lakers. Now he's a coach, but he played with like Kobe Bryant and stuff like that. So he might be like on sports publications, but not necessarily entertainment. So one of the things to keep in mind when you're coming up with your idea for a magazine is the inside is like what you want that to look like. And so this is my contents page. So what I did is I purchased a bunch of magazines, and I just went through them and really looked at the design of magazines and how they looked and felt and what I wanted for mine. I also looked at the page quality, because a lot of magazines have different like page, like the grade of paper, the thickness of the paper. And so I wanted kind of like a really like gloss, thin feel to it. And so, but if you look at the if you look at the inside, I have features, departments, B-roll, and columns. And B-roll is kind of like everything kind of fun, like a unique aspect, a unique angle of this magazine. And so like we had a thing called high definition, right? Page 27. And if you go there on page 27, here it is, right? And so here it was like a unique definition for a word C-47, which is a term that usually is referred to a military transport aircraft, but in the film business is actually the technical name for a spring type wooden clothespin that ended up that was used starting with like Citizens Kane, I believe was the first time, with Orson Welles. And so anyhow, we talk about like fun, interesting, or not say fun, but I say interesting definitions for the entertainment business so people can learn more about it. So I ended up doing, as the editor-in-chief, I ended up doing 12 issues of Hollywood and Vine magazine. It was a great ride. That was my intention when I started. I just wanted to do 12 issues. It was a lot of work. So after the 12 issues, I didn't continue with it because it was so much work. And also that was at the time when print was not becoming as popular as it once was. So now everything is like so digital and so online. I'll still always love print publications because there's something about like physically holding a magazine especially when you're on the cover. But there's something physically like interesting about holding and actually touching a magazine. You know what I mean, Andrew? Like actually touching a book as opposed to reading. Like, do you like reading books on your iPad? Or do you like touching the book? When you read your superhero books, would you want to scroll through your book and read it? Online, you prefer to touch it, right? Yeah, something about the feel and touch of a book is like interesting. But anyway, so you want to hire a graphic design artist who can help you through this process. And they don't have to be someone that charges a lot of money. They don't even have to have had done magazines before. You want to find someone who can give you samples of work that can understand, even if they've done brochures or certain things that require a lot of detail. That's what you want. Someone has to be very detail orientated when it comes to magazines, because there's so much detail of like, not necessarily the editorial. I was always in charge of the editorial, making sure that the spelling and things like that were right. But just like the colors, does this pop? Does our statement greenlight your showbiz career pop? And all of the details of making this, this and symbol red, all those details that are so important to making it. And even like this, we created this house. This ad was created in-house by our graphic design artist. Now, what I used to do is I would find magazines. Like I said, right now I would look at ads and I would look at how they design different articles. And so I would give my graphic design artist samples, and I'd say, I want this article like this. I want this ad to be created like this. And so that's another way where you can less utilize their creative flow, because sometimes being creative requires a lot more energy from someone. And that way they can just focus on the mechanics of getting what you need done. And I do that pretty much in all things. Like I've done self-published, which I talked about before last season. I talked about self-publishing. And one of the things I do is I'll give them sample books and say pages and say, this is what I want it to look like. That way we're not going back and forth in like concept ideas. I pretty much make sure that I understand the concepts of what I'm trying to convey, and that someone else who's kind of collaborating with me is more so like doing the mechanics of it all. So again, details, right? You want someone, they had to come up with like the layout and the design for that. And then you want to get a good team, in this masthead. The masthead, which is the part that describes your team here. We had me, founder, editor-in-chief. We had 2 managing editors, a creative designer, which was the person who did the layout for the magazine. We had photographers, original photographers who went out. We always had the cover person give us their photo, but we had a lot of original photography done. So like this is an ad, and our photographer went out to Hollywood and Vine and actually shot this real time at night. Beautiful photo. And so we use that as an advertisement to promote the magazine. And then like this was like stock art that we got from like Big Stock. You can purchase stock photo. We got that and created an ad based on that. So you want to find someone that's good with detail. That's the most important thing. And then I had an advertising director who was in charge of like the sales and coming up with our media kit. And making sure that you know how much you're charging ads for each space, and that your media kit looks very nice. We use PowerPoint for ours, just because it's something that was like easy to do. I kind of pretty much did the media kit, but I got some information and advice on like the price points from looking at other media kits. I encourage you to go to other magazines that are kind of like yours and look at their media kits and see what they're doing. So you don't have to like copy what they're doing, but you can use it as an information and resource to understand how to price things, what type of ads you need to have, what are the ad sizes and things like that. So you don't have to start from scratch. You don't need to start from scratch when you're trying to create a business or start a magazine. The other thing is in terms of the finances. Now this magazine I did within my nonprofit organization. So this was essentially a DBA within the nonprofit. I didn't create a whole new company, because I find that that's a quicker way to like launch businesses, especially if you don't know how long you want to keep it. It's more like a project or a small venture. And so that's how I started Hollywood and Vine magazine. I hope that some of this information that you heard was helpful, even if it was just one little teeny tip. All right, thanks for tuning in.